Hi guys, it's Chad here, and we are bringing you a historical battle. This is the Battle of Austerlitz, or the Battle of the Three Emperors as it was known historically. Now, this is a slightly different broadcast from the usual you're used to seeing, as I have a guest with me today. Joining me on this broadcast will be Malekith. Good evening, Mal.
Good evening, thanks for having me.
You're welcome, sir, you're welcome, and what we're going to be doing is telling you about what is going to be happening in this battle. Now, obviously, this is a historical reenaction line battle here, and obviously the teams are getting themselves set up. We got quite a few on both sides. You've got 64 for the Austrians and 36 for the French. Now, there's going to be more coming, no doubt, Mal.
Yeah, I think it would be a very one-sided battle if they didn't show up, but people always take a while to get in at the start of these things.
Yeah. Now, obviously, what we're going to do is tell you also about some of the rules as well. Now, the rules basically are, if your regiment has less than 4 people left, you have to join another line. Crouching is for lines is only allowed when you're in a double rank. Now, that's obviously so that people, you know, in front of the back line can then fire, you know, all the rest of it and not get hit by their friends behind them. That's common sense. Line infantry has to stay in close ranks. Only skirmishers and light infantry are allowed to spread out. Dragoons may use light infantry tactics. Units may only fall out of formation when charging. And no insulting of anybody during the battle. So, team hitting and team killing will be met with an immediate ban. Now, that seems to be a pretty standard rule set for this kind of event now.
Yep, that is fairly standard. There is one rule, however, which is different to the battles you usually broadcast, which is that in this event you are allowed to fire on the charge. So they do not have to be fully formed up to fire a volley, as long as they then continue to charge afterwards.
Sounds good. Now, obviously, this is an extremely large map. Now, because everyone's playing on the snow level, and because these idiots in the time of the Napoleonic Wars didn't believe in the things that the current armies do, like camouflage, means they'll be very easy to see. Now, obviously, speaking from a strategic point of view, this is going to make your enemy quite easy to see. If you were in this situation, Mal, what would you do to try and disguise your tactics from the advancing enemy?
Well, usually you would try to keep out of sight as much as possible behind hills and brows of low-lying outcrops, but there's very few of those, so the clusters of trees are likely going to be the best places to bury your troops behind, at least initially, to mask your movements.
Also, one thing I see a lot being done in line battles is the use of the officer looking over the top of the hill to investigate where everybody is, while keeping the remainder of his line behind the brow of the hill to kind of hide your numbers. Now, the only drawback I see with this is there's not really a load of hills that they could do that kind of thing with, except for the area where the river is and the bridges.
Yeah, that's correct. The other big reason for doing that is to avoid stray cannon shots wiping out a huge chunk of your line. It means only the officer's exposed, but they can probably get away with that by using concealment instead of hard cover, but for actually masking the numbers it won't be quite as effective, as you said.
Yeah, now, looking down at the river, now you can see the river here, relatively shallow in pretty much most places. Obviously, I'm just looking now, you've got the wooden bridge, the middle bridge, which we'll call that, in the centre, and you've also got a little bridge over by a small little hamlet over here. Now, this is a, well, I suppose you could call it quite a serious choke point, and it seems to have the advantage of the defending team because of the placement of spikes.
Yeah, it's quite out of the way on the side of the map, though. What you may find is cavalry trying to use that to get across to assault the French artillery from behind, especially with that cluster of trees just on the French side of the river. So I don't think you'll see that as a major focal point for infantry fighting.
Okay, so, I mean, we're probably looking at the advantage of the stone bridge over on the far side is that there's a few selection of houses there. Now, obviously, what we could be looking at is a situation where the French, who will be spawning on our right there with a same amount of cannon armament as the Austrians, 2 howitzers and 2 standard cannons. The question is whether or not they actually use this stone bridge and the hamlet around it as a staging point, possibly, or somewhere to kind of defend that bridge. What's your thoughts on that, Mel?
The problem with moving your cannons to that side of the map is the cluster of trees near the hamlet, whilst great for your skirmishers to avoid enemy cavalry, will severely obstruct your artillery vision, especially with the sort of hill layout just the other side of the forest. I suspect you'll find the artillery will stay fairly centralised just to keep their fields of fire fairly open.
Now, I notice also that the spawn for the French seems very open, not a lot of actual cover around where they are. Now, the Austrian, obviously, they have trees, they have that small hamlet on the left, and the small hamlet that they've got on the right. Now, obviously, the question is whether or not these guys decide to move to those locations, use them as defensive points. Obviously, speaking from your point of view, would you favour something a little bit more aggressive, perhaps?
I would probably be fairly aggressive at trying to take the opposite side of the riverbank, but then pressing further onto the map, you'd want to see where the enemy units were heading and try to isolate and eliminate some early on so that you've got an advantage in numbers. But it's very much going to play out depending how aggressive both teams are, which with the individual regiments, very few of them are actually grouped together in a brigade. It could go anyway, as they'll all be operating on their own fairly much.
Yeah, this is obviously difficult to command from a sort of top-level view because of all the different regiments involved, different comms programs, different comms servers, so on and so forth. But kind of the standard fare, I suppose, when you're coming to these kind of large events. Now, you've got the 18TS, there's Oberst Blöcher, who's in as the Austrians, and it looks like his RT Lucas is there as his second, complete with no chin whatsoever. Good God, man. So that seems to be quite common in this design for this community, is the most ridiculous faces you've ever seen in your life.
It does seem to be let's hit the random button and see what obscure concoctions we can come up with. It shouldn't technically be able to keep the hat on their head because there is no chin, but they do seem to manage it somehow.
Yeah, you've got to say it's quite a impressive modicum of design. Now, I notice also that, I don't know whether this is indicative of later strategies, they've actually moved the two larger cannons up closer to try and engage possibly as far as the hamlets at the river. Difficult to say, but we've got one more regiment who's on the way, so you've obviously got these guys possibly setting up maybe. Now, I don't know if any of the musician advantages and buffs will be available for these guys. I don't know if it's switched on for this event. It's possible it may be, but you don't really see musicians because of the lag that it creates in the actual game.
Yeah, it raises the pings just that little bit higher. They've been working on it. It's definitely improved since when Napoleonic Wars launched, and you'll probably see it start coming back into line battles. But the 10-15 extra ping it adds does impact on people's melee ability, so they generally prefer to have it off.
Now, obviously, when you play a lot of line battles... Oh, lovely cannonball shot there. When you play line battles, there's the map's usually not as big as this, or at least action becomes a lot closer. Now, how is that going to affect the artillery? Because the way that the artillerymen operate, especially in sieges, they've kind of got a fixed target, they've got to breach the walls, they know what they've got to do. How is the artilleryman's strategy going to change for this particular kind of map and battle?
Well, they've got bigger fields of fire, so they have more things to shoot at, but that's not necessarily a good thing, because if they're on opposite sides of the battlefield, they could waste a lot of time turning to face them. Equally, it's much longer distances, so they have to allow more leading of the target and, of course, the bouncing trajectory of the standard cannons. Also, the howitzers are far less effective. They can only reach approximately halfway across this map, so you'll probably see them getting left at the spawn and hardly used.
Obviously, you've got the advantage of the standard cannons, the accuracy that they produce, and when speaking about the actual cannon aiming, a lot of these guys won't actually be aiming... Oh dear, the commander just got unhorsed and stabbed in the bottom. The guys, when they're doing their cannon aiming, they won't necessarily aim directly for the troops. They'll try and bounce it just before the troops. Now, obviously, if they're in a line, that means that you get that bouncing effect through as many of the line as possible. Obviously, you don't have mortars, you're not going to have any kind of explosive effect. But that seems to be, I would have thought, a very effective tactic on a map as large as this, Mal.
Yeah, also dropping it just in front of them means there's very little chance of you overshooting, whereby you'd get no kills at all, whereas if you drop short, there's always that chance that bounce will still take it through the enemy. So it's just pretty much ensuring that you get at least some kills on the majority of your cannonball shots.
And for those of you also who haven't seen the line battles and the sieges and stuff like that, that's why you see a lot of the guys snaking around, because the last thing you want to do is provide a cannoneer with a nice big long line of troops of which he can just decimate with a single cannonball. Isn't that right, Mel?
Yeah, the artillery are famed for their love of being able to obliterate entire lines. It's very much like a paparazzi attack on the print screen key when they do achieve it.
Yeah, I can quite believe that. It certainly turns out to be a big ooh, so to speak, from the audience when you get a nice kill. But then there is the side of that where there is a little bit of team killing involved. But those are part of the breaks. So we're seeing a little bit of cavalry massacre going in on the cannons. Now, obviously, as they're out in the open, they do not have a lot of support, or I should say more cover. They don't have the ability to stop themselves being attacked from the rear. If you were in a position to place the cannons, do you think you would put it maybe closer in the hamlet in the protection of the trees on the left-hand side, or maybe somewhere else? What's your thoughts on that?
Just inside the trees is always a good place, because then you can use the trunks to block the enemy cavalry's movement, because they don't have a particularly tight turning circle unless they're moving slowly, which then leaves them open to counter-attack. Their current position isn't too bad. They can make use of that fence to try and block the cavalry's advance, but it's not anywhere near as effective as a forest would be.
Yeah, now looking over at the hamlet on the right-hand side, just seeing what kind of defensive areas they've got. Quite an open hamlet, and we should be going live after the reset. It looks to be a single set of logs defending. Obviously, it's not closed in. And we are underway with the first round in this battle. This is going to be intensely good stuff. Looking forward to this a lot, Mal.
Yeah, one interesting choice is the selection of cavalry. The Austrians have gone with dragoons, which means they get the firearms that they can use from the horseback. They can also dismount and skirmish, whereas the French have gone with the hussars, which is the light cavalry, which are considerably faster but only have swords.
Yeah, that's going to make things slightly different. Obviously, you've got the extra long sabre that most of these horsemen will be equipped with to obviously give them the extra reach they'll need, because they are leaning off the side of a horse. So it looks like the artillery, the 2 6-pounders there, are staying in place where they are at the moment. And it looks like we're looking at the Austrians making their way out. Now, obviously, let's see if we can get an idea of who these two regiments are and what they're doing. So we have the 18 TES led by Clausewitz. And obviously Gravy Boat carrying the colours for him. And it looks like we've also got a detachment here of the 3 TES with Kuratuki, or Kurantiki. Oh, God, no idea what that name is. So these guys are setting up or trying to get an idea of what's going on nearby the hamlet on the left-hand side of the Austrians. And it's just a matter of waiting to see what the French decide to do on this approach, Mel.
Yeah, as you were saying earlier, the Austrians are using that hamlet and the forest on the left to screen their forces at the moment, so it's really up to the French to push forwards or equally take up defensive positions. I mean, historically, they were on the defensive at the beginning of this battle.
Yeah, now the thing is, one thing I have noticed is that it looks like the French are being more aggressive than the Austrians. Maybe the Austrians are taking a bide your time and wait to see what happens. The French are already to the middle wooden bridge at the moment, and I think your suggestion about the cavalry taking the right-hand route appears to actually be correct. Now, let's see who this French regiment is making their way across the bridge. This is the LM4PP, led by Vainrus, and we've also got some other fellas at the back here. That will be 1ER, there's Privatech, and these guys are getting themselves set up, making their way towards the Austrian lines, trying to use the keys as a bit of cover and find out what's going on. And just looking over onto the left-hand side, I think what they've done is they've put their cavalry inside the trees to hide their numbers, with a single commander scoping out the area, Mal.
Yep, they're pretty much just holding position at the moment. The 6 TES on the French side are playing a very dangerous game. They moved very late out the spawn when the Austrian cannons had already set up. I'm surprised they managed to get away without heavy losses. Whereas the Austrian forces themselves, not only are they screened, but they're also in a horizontal line. So even if they did get hit, they would only lose 2, possibly 3 men.
Yeah, now looking, obviously, there's a French regiment making their way over to the stone bridge and the associated hamlet. Now, there's a good chance that what they might try and do is actually make their way up the right-hand side of the map. As we have the first cannon kill, there's Feldsaal with a nice cannonball into Wang. Oh, God, that's going to hurt. So, conscript Wang, unfortunately. And I'm just looking to see what's going on around the stone bridge at the moment. So, you've got looks like a combination, nice regiment of Frenchmen making their way up the right-hand side of the map, possibly to maybe outflank the Austrians on the right-hand side of that hamlet that they're defending now.
Yep, and the rest of their army is heading over onto the left to try and flank from that side, so they may be going for a very wide pincer movement, likely looking to let their cavalry flank around the rear and take out the enemy artillery when all the line infantry are otherwise engaged.
Yeah, now I'm seeing a couple of guys in the woods here. Now, this is the woods in front of the hamlet. I'm just seeing, I think they are Austrian skirmishers. So, yeah, these are Austrian riflemen. So these are taking pot shots at the line infantry coming over from the stony bridge on the left-hand side. So these guys obviously trying to make a little bit of a dent as best they can into the enemy, and you've obviously got the cavalry for the Austrians on the left-hand side. And there we go, there's the line infantry for the Austrians making their way over to the left-hand side to try and intercept the line of Frenchmen coming from the bridge. So looks like they're getting set up for a little bit of long-distance musket fire. This should be entertaining to see how this goes. So it's just a matter of what they decide to do. The Austrians seem to be on top of this, as Feldsaal seems to be doing a pretty good, accurate job with the cannon today.
These long-range battles really will favour the Austrian side. Their use of the rifles, which the French famously just chose not to use, will give them a distinct advantage in long-range battles. Although the longer reload, they are considerably more accurate.
And that's equivalent to the Baker rifle, really, which is what the English had. For those of you who are not aware, essentially the rifle, the reason it was more accurate is because of basic rifling on the barrel, which makes the ball rotate in the air and actually makes it more accurate, less likely to disappear off in a random tangent, as the musket ball, which rattled along the barrel, tended to do. So, obviously, giving them an advantage from the point of view of the Austrians. However, the French over here by the not far from the hamlet, by the stony bridge, they're being a little bit ambitious, trying to get fire in from that far. What's your thoughts, Mal?
The chances of hitting at that distance are extremely remote, even against a fully formed double-rank line. The chance of them ever engaging skirmishes at that range, it'll be complete fluke if they hit anything, to be honest. And you're likely to survive a shot at that range as well, as damage drops off with distance too.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the case. Now, I'm just going to see if I can follow some of the French brigades. Now, as you can see, I'm moving over to the left-hand side of the map, or more to do with actually the middle and left-hand side. You've got a regiment from the French moving their way up the middle of the map. Now, you can also see a regiment making their way to the hamlet that is on the Austrians' right-hand side, that little mini hamlet by the group of trees. Now, it looks like there's a French brigade or French regiment there already. Let's lock in these fellows. So that's the 1 ER TIR. So these guys are making use of the cover and trying to engage anybody who is defending that artillery position. We've now got line infantry moving up as fire comes in from Tango with a very nice headshot there. And it looks like the skirmishers are using a little bit of their accurate rifle fire to take down numbers of the French here, Mel.
Yep, they really do need to move up fast on those skirmishers if they're going to stay in sight of them. Your best bet is either just avoid them completely or try and engage them in melee where they don't have access to bayonets due to having that rifle. Now, the French, of course, having muskets, do have access to those bayonets, so that makes them a little more useful when going in to engage in melee.
Right, now, I don't know if you noticed, but on the right-hand side, another nice cannon shot there from Feldsaal, hiding in the brow or the dip of a hill was the cavalry, and the cavalry for the French are now making a charge on the right hand side, supported by line infantry, pushing pretty hard. Now you've also got the skirmishers, who are supported by Austrian line infantry. They're rotating over to the right hand side, and they're going to try and engage the cavalry as the cavalry comes in to try and take out the skirmishers. Couple of sword slices here, and they are now trying to form a circle to try and prevent themselves. This could be very unfortunate for this line infantry. Oh dear, this is not going to go well for them. Absolutely being decimated. Now, whether or not it should have been a better idea to use the cover of the forest there rather than actually out in the open, it's a bit unfortunate for these Austrians. They are fighting them off as best they can, being knocked to the floor by barging horses, but I think it's fair to say that the Austrian defence on the right hand side by the cannons has effectively fallen apart.
Yeah, that was a very well timed assault by their light cavalry there, using the trees for cover, bursting out whilst they were still in line and not in a square formation. They caught the skirmishers especially off guard. Without their bayonets, they have very little they can do against enemy cavalry.
Yeah, now you see, obviously, there's only a few number of the infantry and, even one less now, and cavalry. And you've noticed then that the dragoons have now moved up to support their side. However, I think it could be a situation where it's not going to be enough, as the huge amount of defensive side on the right hand side has been essentially decimated by that cavalry charge, which was very well timed, as you said, by the French. Now you've got more of the skirmishers inside the fence of that middle hamlet. They are attempting to take down as many of the cavalry as possible, and you've also got another line infantry coming over from the left hand side round the back of the hamlet, and they are actually pulling back away from another line infantry of the French right over the far left-hand side. What's your thoughts on that, Mel?
Pulling away with the Austrian unit was very good play, actually. They've left an entire French regiment just isolated out on the edge of the map, unable to contribute to this fight. So if the Austrians can focus down these guys in the trees, they may still turn this around despite having lower numbers left alive.
Yeah, now looking at Frackow at the moment for the 1 ARTR, no idea why he's standing in the middle of a snowy area with nobody supporting behind him. However, he has got some friends behind him. He is now cheesing it to the tree line, and their friends are here. I think, yeah, this is the LN4PP with nice fire into the charging infantry. There we go. They go in for the bayonetti stab at the same time as Nicholas comes in and kills a couple of the 4PP, at the same time as the dragoons go in to try and clear the French that are in the trees. Now, obviously looking at this from point of view, I think the Austrian have an advantage over numbers, and not looking so good. We're watching Spider Pig here at the moment. There we go, Spider Pig is no more, and it looks like the combination of the Austrian line infantry and the cavalry there seems to have been quite effective. And also I noticed the howitzers have not been touched.
Yeah, there's a lot of Austrian units still alive in terms of the different varieties. If they can utilise their strengths properly against that large remaining French line, they should win this. You'd want the skirmishers harassing possibly from the side by the building, the cavalry threatening the flanks, and then what's left of the line engaging from the front. All with cannon support, of course. Yeah,
definitely. Now, the thing is, obviously, we're just looking at this French line infantry. Now, numbers are pretty equal, 28 and 28 alive. Also, 25 for the French, 28 for the Austrians. So the Austrians only have the advantage of 3, but there's still all to play for. This is quite a substantial French line you've got here. This is pretty... okay, maybe there's 3 less. That was a pretty successful cannon shot there by Nicholas. And yet more fire coming down in here. Let's see, is this the 18? No, this is the 6TE here. So you've got a drummer. There's XR62. Now the question is, what are these guys going to do? Are they going to try and move forward, get out of the way of the cannon fire? Because that cannon fire coming in from Feldsau, you can see those cannonballs just bouncing over the hills there, doing absolutely deadly damage. They are going to pick off this line infantry so quickly, and they're going to have a lot of problems because you've still got 6 or 10 men of the line, you've got the skirmishers, and you've got the cannons firing against them. How are they going to do this, Mal?
If this was me, I would have gone entirely the other direction, around the left of the house, which is shielded from the cannons, deny them their cannons, and force the skirmishers in line to retreat into a less favourable position. Instead, they seem to just be lining up in front of the full firepower of the Austrians.
Yeah, it definitely appears to be this way. However, they have decided to turn and fight, and the fire coming in from a combination of the line infantry of the Austrians, and the more accurate fire coming in from the LN5PP, and it's that extra rifle power and a combination of the cannonballs there that has absolutely decimated this French contingent. And I think it's fair to say it's going to be all over for them. They've only got 7 versus 24, so a 4-to-1 disadvantage, and I think it's fair to say it's going to be all over for this French regiment, and a successful win for the Austrians.
Yep, bar some extreme melee prowess, I think the French have decidedly lost this.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say.
The cavalry.
Yeah. So, as you can see, the standard stabbing and sword swinging, sabres all over the place. A little bit of random drive-by horsing as one of their commanders is trying to defend himself. Das Brot gets mugged by a horse and then stabbed in the back by a bayonet. So, a successful win there by the Austrians. Now, that was a very good round, and we will be coming back to you with the next round shortly. Stay tuned. Okay, and we're back as we bring you the next round in this historical battle. Now, let's see if we can focus on what's going on. Now, obviously, that last round, a successful play there by the Austrians. Good use of cover. They moved into a defensive position and wait for the French to come to them. Do you think that was the wiser of the two strategies there, Mal?
Given they've got the high ground with the better artillery positions, I think they made the right choice there.
Okay, well, oh dear, a couple of disconnections and somebody just got punched. So, a fight in the ranks has started already, so you obviously got a little bit of kicking going on in the ranks. One thing I tend to find a lot with these kind of players is they do get a little bit rambunctious before the actual battle starts, so they're itching to get into the battle, and so kicks start to fly, the odd punch every now and then, and you've got to keep discipline in the ranks, so to speak.
That's definitely the case, and every officer has a different way of doing it. Some will just discipline them vertically, and others will be a little more explosive with their pistol.
Pistol-related discipline. We like to see that. Okay, so let's just see what's going on. Now you've got 18 TS Oberst Blöcher, who is the commander. Now he's checking the bridges. Now I think he's checking the main entrance to the wooden bridge to see what the French are going to do. Now the question is, obviously it's going to be a situation where the French are going to have to do exactly the same. They are going to have to be aggressive. Now, I don't know if you've noticed the hamlet, the small wooden hamlet with the small bridge over on the right hand side. This appears to be quite a determined push here by the French teams.
Yep, this looks very coordinated. I would suspect someone has organised this to some extent, either through chat or through voice comms, if they have got that level of organisation. But it's nice to see everyone moving together.
Yeah, now obviously the only drawback is obviously going across a small bridge like this, bit of a choke point. However, the lines appear to be moving in the right direction, and it at least keeps some of their numbers hidden for a short while. Now, we are looking into the distance at the Austrian defenders. There were no Australians in the Napoleonic War. What's wrong with you? So, even though some of the English may have ended up in Australia at some point, we're following the 1ER TR. There's Colonel Jaun 3 and other members of his line. So he's obviously checking to see what the Austrians are doing, and the cannon fire is coming towards the French already. So it looks like, oh, heavens above, Feyras there with a great kill onto 2 members of 6TE. That's exactly the kind of bounce that you were talking about, Mal. One bounce just before the troops, and then literally the second bounce goes straight through their head.
Yep, that's definitely a perfect shot, and that's also why you want better line discipline when you're moving out. They had 3 guys in a straight line directly in path of the cannon there. You want a single line as they're in now when you're moving out under cannon fire in open areas like this, just to minimise casualties.
Yeah, that sometimes isn't always the case. There's always going to be members of the line who have a somewhat magnetic quality to cannonballs, but this is unfortunately a situation that occurs an awful lot. Now, the French being very aggressive on the left-hand side with sheer numbers, and you've also got the cavalry moving into the inside of the map, or the middle point. So you've got another line. Now, I think it's fair to say, looking at the Austrian line moving up on the right-hand side of their defences to meet this French line coming from the bridge, they're going to have the advantage of numbers. So the question is it could end up breaking the right side of this Austrian line. What's your thoughts, Mal?
They've definitely got the number advantage, but if you look back towards the hamlet, they also have 2 more lines in a perfect position to cut both this Austrian line and the small skirmish unit coming up behind them completely off from their cannons, if they've just got the aggressiveness to put up between the 2 units.
Yeah, so we're going to watch the line battle going on between the Austrians and the French on the right-hand side. Now, they were just about to present, but it looks like the French are now moving up in a line to try and engage. Look, there we go. See, they're moving up. They can see the enemy pointing at them, waiting for the opportunity to fire. However, the skirmishers are taking pot shots at them, trying to snip a few guys off there. So you've got riflemen. There we go. So a few people going in from the 6TE. There we go. The fire's going in from the Austrians. Oh, look at that. Wonderful combined fire by the 6TE. And they're going in for the charge. Great play there by the French team. However, a few members taken down by the 3TES. Wow, that was classic line battle formations and drilling there, Mal.
Yeah, that was excellent. They were trying to bait the Austrians into firing whilst they themselves are still slightly scattered to try and provoke the misses, and then forming up themselves to fire. But they unfortunately did it too far away, so when they charged, they took significant casualties from their next Austrian volley.
And the enemy general, the Austrian general, has just been dehorsed and stabbed in the testicles. So no more commanding the battle for him, unfortunately. But I noticed that the Austrians certainly came off better in that battle. Granted, they lost quite a few of their numbers, but another thing that they did in that battle was they actually fired when the French were charging towards them. And that made a significant dent on the enemy.
Yep, firing as they're nearing towards you when they have no ability to return fire is always the best time to inflict maximum casualties. The other thing that would have significantly influenced that fight was the other 2 French units, including one of their light infantry units, not pushing up to assist them, just leaving that unit out to hang on its own.
Yeah, that could have definitely made... Oh, nice long-distance shots there from a couple of riflemen there. And as you can see, the French numbers being picked off as they're moving back towards the hamlet to try and get some defensive. Now, you've got a nice little outcropping here of Frenchmen. 4PP also with the 7th Hussars in there. And obviously the 6TE, what remains of the 6TE line. So the French being quite aggressive on this left-hand side. However, they've got to be careful that they don't get caught out by the cavalry that is roaming around by the Austrians and the skirmishers on the left-hand side. Now, the question is, where are the French cavalry?
The French cavalry are in the hamlet right near the Austrian cannon. They're just waiting for that line to be distracted and go elsewhere before they break out for an assault on that cannon position.
Now, I think it's fair to say that the Austrians have suddenly developed a very, very defensive orientated mindset, as they've now put loads of stakes around their cannons. Now, obviously, this is an advantage, being defended by the skirmishers, but it means they cannot be charged by the cavalry. The cavalry will have to actually charge in one direction, and that will give them advantage of pouring down fire, as well as, obviously, additional firepower from the Austrians, the 18 TES, who are sitting here, led by Corporal Carban. And so, would you say that's more defensive-minded, or it's actually advantageous to do that kind of defence?
It's definitely advantageous when you've got a team like the French who aren't bringing their artillery up to try and dig out the static positions. They really are just trying to assault them face-on with their line infantry. And they really should be trying to counter-battery them with their own artillery, especially a howitzer in there. Would cause no end of pain.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I mean, it's you can see the cavalry here for the French here, the Hussars, and you've got a small line up on the right-hand side. Now, they're about to run into a collection of the cavalry. So there's the cavalry for the Austrians. They're standing and firing. And out come the sabres, and they're probably now going to have a little bit of a run-in with the French cavalry. So it's all kicking off now as the line that is hiding behind the hamlet. Let's see, this is the 1ER. They are obviously being very careful about what they decide to do. And it looks like it's all kicking off as you've got the line who has now also backed off to the fence by the hillock, or sorry, by the by the God, what's the word I'm looking for? By the hamlet, and the French also moving up to flank them on the right-hand side. As you've got that great big huge long line of Austrians, they are making their way back towards the artillery. It's turning into a little bit of a confusing battle right now.
Yeah, the hussars have definitely split themselves thin. They're running around in all of the Austrian army, which are ultimately resulting in their eradication, but they're sowing chaos while they do it. Unfortunately, the nearest French units are too far away to capitalise on it.
Yeah, that's unfortunately the case, because what it tends to be is the best thing to have is combination of artillery, and then obviously you have the cavalry to support, and the infantry as well. So the additional firepower of that infantry is going to cause them problems. So it looks like the remaining members of the Austrian cavalry are going to try and mop up what remains of the French cavalry. So that effectively takes them out of contention for the remainder of the battle, especially if those Austrian cavalry continue to essentially deal with them over in the corner. So what it remains to be is the line infantry versus line infantry, Austrians versus French around the area of the cannons. So you can see gunfire going in, stabbing over from the hussars and all the rest of it, and you've got a small number of line infantry making their way. So you've got four members here of the 1 TER going up against an awfully big line of the Austrians, and they're having a fight through the forests with looks like members of the 6 TE as well.
Yeah, these fights through the forests are they're rather confusing. Certain people will be able to see the enemy line due to their positioning, but then other members of the line won't, and they'll just literally have to fire blind through the trees, so the effectiveness of the volleys varies massively.
Yeah, now one thing obviously you see a lot being done in this kind of battle is people zigzagging to try and avoid the bullets being sent in their direction. Now obviously, because things get very confused in the middle of a melee battle, it seems to be a lot of team kills tend to happen in that kind of thing, because you're going in for a stab on the enemy and you just happen to follow through just that little bit too far and end up stabbing your teammates. So team kills in melee battle are quite a common thing.
Yep, especially when you get target fixation. He steps to the left, you go to follow him with your bayonet as a friendly comes in to try and take him out as well. They can quite easily place themselves in the way.
Yeah, that always tends to happen, but it's all part of the excitement. So let's see if we can lock in on remaining members of the French. Now, you've got a nice little line of Austrians who are over on the far right-hand side by the woods. Let's see if we can lock in. No, there's no need. The last of the French, the hussars, were the only ones remaining. And the Austrians take it with another win as we move on to the next round. And we are back with the next round. 2 rounds to nothing in favour of the Austrians. I think it's fair to say that they've definitely shown the best strategy thus far. Comments you were making earlier in the previous map is the unwillingness, it seems, of the French to actually bring up their artillery, bring it in closer and actually engage the Austrians point blank.
Yeah, it does seem that they've taken that on board somehow, because they're currently limbering up 1 howitzer and 1 cannon, and they'll likely bring those up across the map at least some way. The howitzer definitely will have to go at least half the map to be effective, because it has such short range.
Now, obviously, that means if the howitzer is actually brought up into a significant range for it to do damage, that means that the Austrians will have to vary up their strategy and at least be a little bit more aggressive, possibly move in, and maybe I would have thought skirmishers would be a good section to send in to take out a forward artillery position, because they can keep their spacing open and then will be less susceptible to cannon fire. What's your thoughts on that?
They'll definitely be less susceptible to cannon fire, but the French army has a lot of cavalry in comparison, and they're very fast. If they go too far away from their line support, they will likely get cut down by the cavalry coming out from behind a hill or through some trees.
Yeah, now, I notice also that the Austrians are moving over to the far left-hand side by the hamlet, moving down to the tree line, and possibly going slightly more aggressive than they have in previous rounds. Now, let's see. No, it looks like they're holding the left-hand side there. So you've got a regiment holding the hamlet on the left-hand side and also the hamlet on the right-hand side. And it looks like you've got a line regiment combined with line troops and also skirmishers coming down the centre of the line. Now, obviously, if we look to see what the French are doing, They seem to be, I think, moving over to the right-hand side towards the Stony Bridge. And as you said earlier, you can see a couple of the cannons being limbered up and being dragged into position. Now, do you think they're going to try and bring the cannons across the bridges to try and engage them a bit closer, or do you think it's safer for them to stay on the other side of the bank?
They will almost certainly have to bring the howitzer across if they want to make use of it. Whether they will leave the cannon on the opposite bank, I'm not so sure. The dragoons of the Austrians do not seem to be particularly aggressive, so they may be able to leave them there without being too much of a negative impact. The Austrians, I'm just looking at their artillery positions. They seem to have a very interesting setup going on. It looks rather elaborate with a whole raised platform, and I'm not sure how effective that will be. It looks like the cannon is leaning to one side, so that may affect their aim.
Yeah, just moving in to have a look at the cannon. Yeah, I see what you mean. They're using barricades to kind of lift the cannon up, maybe give it a little bit more range, possibly. Difficult to say, but it's certainly in an unusual limbered position. It's obviously the only drawback is because it's higher up, it probably makes it easier to hit. But I've also noticed that the French have deployed their howitzer on their side of the bank, so there's no way it's going to have enough range to actually hit the Austrians unless they leave the safety of their hamlets on the left and right.
I just saw the first howitzer shell land. It hasn't even reached that clump of trees in the middle of the map. They would have to bring that far further forward to be able to hit anything. Possibly past the trees of the hamlet next to the stone bridge. If they were going to hit the enemy artillery position, maybe even further forward again.
Yeah, I see what you mean, because I'm just looking at some of the craters that have come in from the howitzer. These are the circular craters because they tend to land more vertically, whereas the cannonballs tend to bounce more horizontally, so you'll see a kind of teardrop shape. So that's how you tell the difference between where the cannonballs will be landing. Now, obviously, as you can see, it hasn't even made it halfway there. And you've got more fire coming in from the cannons of the Austrians in towards the hamlet by the Stony Bridge. The question is, what is going on by the Stony Bridge? I think we might have some French people making their way over there now.
You'll want to be having a look at the small hamlet bridge. The Austrians advanced with a small unit, and the French cavalry has spotted them and is busy engaging now.
Okay, so we're going to move over to the bridge on the left-hand side. Looking at the small hamlet bridge, you're also going over the top of a collection of line artillery. Oh, hussars cutting people left, right and centre with the obvious team kill. Yeah, we're just seeing that battle in the background. And yeah, they've really done a number on these guys. Absolutely butchered the 5PP there. So the 7th Hussars seem to be reclaiming their name after the slight balls up of the previous round, and that is essentially the left side of, or I should say the right side in the case of looking at it from the Austrian point of view. They are now essentially in a much weaker position on that side as they have lost a complete line.
It wasn't just any line either, that was their skirmisher unit. They were trying to do, as you suggested, and flank round to take out the cannons with their skirmishers, and that's always a risky tactic because cavalry really do tear skirmishers apart if they're unsupported by some units with bayonets.
Yeah, because obviously the advantage of the bayonet, as well as it being on the end of the musket, means that you've got that extra reach, and it can be almost used as a polearm. Very good for taking down the horses and giving you that advantage. So, unfortunately, I feel sorry for the poor guy who's lost his horse. So he's now consigned to walking. Poor fella. That's TPR McGee. So he did mourn his horse briefly, and now he's being left by his mates as they disappear into the hamlet on the right-hand side of the Austrians. And you can see any minute now. The trouble is they're actually all standing in a line. That's not... Look at that bunching set up by the hamlet on the right of the Austrians. They're all bunched together, just waiting for a cannonball. Just waiting for a cannonball.
There's also an Austrian line heading back towards their spawn, which is lining up perfectly with the French artillery for a moment there, which is another very risky strategy when you're walking away from a target. Just to lose the whole back of your line to a cannonball is very embarrassing.
It would be rather embarrassing, yeah. Now, I'm looking at the cavalry for the Austrians. They look like they're trying to do a little bit of long-range pot shots at the cavalry on the right-hand side. The cavalry's now moving out, and it looks like the cannon that's up on the little platform is moving to possibly engage the cavalry coming at them from the right-hand side. Complete miss there, unfortunately. However, I see... there we go. So you've got the cavalry for the Austrians there. There we go. So it looks like the French and the Austrian cavalry now engaging each other at the backside of these woods. Quite a few of the guys being taken out, and a few people being dehorsed, but the sabre swings are going in, and it looks like the Hussars might have got the better of them this time now.
Yeah, I think the Hussars missed a golden opportunity there. Both the line and the skirmishers were too far away from the cannon to support them. Their light horses are far faster than the dragoons. They could have just bypassed them entirely and tried to take out some of the cannon crew and then made good their escape off the other side of the map again. But they seem to have gone for the dragoons instead, which is, if they take the unit out in its entirety, that's obviously beneficial in some ways.
Yeah, definitely. Now, obviously, you've got some Austrians moving up here to try and take out or support the remaining horses, the remaining Clippity-Clops over there, as another Hussar takes out more members. And, yeah, it's just, you know, it's the couple of Hussars have been dehorsed, so they are kind of in an isolated position at the moment. So they can probably come under fire from the skirmishers that are over on the right-hand side of the Austrians. So they're taking pot shots at the remaining dragoon members that have been dehorsed, as you've now got a line infantry of Austrians making their way over to the hamlet on the right side to try and head off a group of French moving in that direction, Mal.
Yeah, they got very lucky with the artillery. You can still see the smoking craters. It managed to bounce itself to a stop about 2 bounces ahead of the line in question. If that had been aimed slightly higher, you may have seen quite a few casualties there due to the alignment. But they're moving over with their light infantry, which are the orange-coloured Grenzers, so they should, with the support of them, be able to take out any French in that area quite easily.
Now, I don't know if you've noticed, the French have basically decided to flee. They are now choosing it in the opposite direction, trying to get out of the way of the fire. Now, you've got a combination of the line infantry on the right and the skirmishers on the left. Looks like they're trying to do some damage to them, but they may not get any kills at this kind of range. But, more to the point, they've actually forced the French back on the right side. So, the defensive play there by the Austrians seems to have been more effective. However, directly over the other side, as a cannonball flies over the top of their head, over the other side of the map, we are looking at a contingent of Austrians. Now, this is a pretty large line over this side, moving up towards the hamlet on the left side of the spawn area for the Austrians, and trying to see what's going on. Now, the question is, who is up here and how many French are left? 50 French are left compared to 59 Austrians. The question is, what are the French going to do next?
From the look of their guard unit, which I believe is the 6TE, they're playing very defensively. They're just sitting on the reverse slope of the riverbank just to avoid artillery shots. But without the support of the rest of their team, just preserving that unit's not going to be overly effective. I imagine they left them there as artillery guards, but that's a rather large unit to use for that sort of role.
Yeah, quite a substantial number here. Obviously, with Drummer in tow, sheer weight of numbers. The question is, obviously, they seem to be going along the bank to hide their numbers, hide themselves from the cannon fire, move into an advantageous position where they can possibly outflank people. However, I see a bunch of French also moving, whoops-a-daisy, bit of a team kill there from the cannon. You've got members of the French line here from the 1ER. Somebody just got punched to death. And you're also looking at more French people coming over from the Stony Bridge. And it looks like they're going to be making a pretty serious push down that left-hand side, which is kind of surprising because you can see now that the Austrians are moving in exactly the same direction. I think there's going to be a punch-up any minute now.
One thing I have noticed is the French appear to have lost their skirmisher unit. They are down 10 men over the Austrian army, and I cannot find their skirmisher detachment with the gold-banded headgear anywhere. So that may affect their gameplay quite a bit.
Yeah, oh, nice shot there from the Smooth, taking down somebody with a long-distance musket shot. Now, obviously, you've got the 3TS moving into the hamlet. Now, the obviously position they'll be in, you've got 3 horsemen in position to assist them. They might make their way over the bridge possibly to see what's going on, and Spider Pig has just sniped one of his teammates. As you can see now, the Austrian skirmishers... this is interesting. The Austrians are the Austrian line appear to be making their way over the rickety bridge here from the hamlet on the right-hand side, as cannon fire is coming in from the French artillery. The question is whether or not... There we go. See, look, you can see the French there trying to engage the Austrians as they make their way over the bridge, doing a lot of damage there. The 6TE with, look at this wonderful line on the bank of the hill, looking absolutely fantastic. They haven't lost a huge amount of their number. Some of the Austrians have turned to fire back. The cavalry has made it across. What do you think the Austrians are trying to do here, Mel?
The Austrians had to move across, really, because on the other side of the bank they were in vision of the French cannon. As soon as they moved across, there is a small rise next to the hamlet building which prevents the cannon from firing. But they were outnumbered from the start, and I would have played far more defensively and let the skirmishers try to engage that big line while it was standing there invitingly.
Yes, now what I'm thinking is, yeah, exactly what I thought, is the cavalry is going for the artillery. Now you can see these cavalrymen making their way in, as looks like there's no guards for the artillery. They're going to try, they're aiming howitzers at horses. This is going to go well. And he only just missed him. So it's just a matter of what these guys decide to do. Are they going to try and fire back with the cannons? Oh, correction, a little bit of cannon fire coming in there from their supporting team. And looks like they're going to try in and kill the remaining members of the French artillery. Now, that's obviously going to cause the French a little bit of a problem. Oh.
Yeah, the French artillery was pretty much holding the game for them. If the Austrians manage to take this out, they can then quite happily retreat back to their own half of the map and use their own artillery if they're still operational, which I believe they are.
Looks like we got two members of the French artillery, Skargog here, and also his teammate, Volpe. Looks like you got possibly two members of the cavalry. Two have been unhorsed, and one is remaining, and it looks like they're having a little bit of sabre attack going on with the enemy. Oh, one of the artillerymen being taken down. Now, if this guy dies, that means that there will be... There we go. They have essentially lost all their chances of artillery. As... Oh, very nice barging by the horse there. And this guy, basically, if he's got any sense, will cheese it in the opposite direction, Mal.
Yep, he would definitely want to be retreating. It looks like the other remaining cavalrymen may either be using that artillery horse to assault with, or possibly just as a cover to try and reload from.
Yeah, it seems to be the case, because obviously horses are well known for their bullet-resisting capabilities. Oh, nice shot into the face of that guy. I think it's fair to say his chances of survival were not high there, Mal.
Yep, there was only one outcome that was going to come from that. The only way he could have gone down any more spectacularly would have been to mount that horse and ride into glory.
Yeah, I think if he'd set fire to the horse and done it, it would have been interesting. But now, what you can see is a nice little French infantry line, the 4PP, down by the hamlet, looking to engage the Austrians as they are coming over this bridge. Now, this might be the time to sneak in there. However, I don't see them sneaking around, because I would have thought that the best time for them to actually pop out and fire in a line is when they were all stuffed up on the bridge and they would have panicked, possibly jumped either side of the bridge. How would you have done that timing-wise, Mal?
You would definitely want to get them when they're crossing the bridge, because they're bunched up. They can't go to the sides to dodge. You're almost guaranteed hits on nearly every shot you put in there, especially at that range.
Yeah, so unfortunately the line infantry's lost a few numbers here, and they're being attacked around the side here by the Austrian line infantry. A couple of members of the French. One guy decided to go AFK, much to his demise, as another member of the 4PP goes down, Wozniak, and a couple of French. There is the Venrus. Looks like he's going in with the sabre, going to try and do some damage, see if he can take on... No, he's not going to do anything. So he got stabbed very quickly in the shoulder. The remaining Frenchman is now trying to disappear. Spider Pig is the sole man, and why he's doing a reload in the middle of a bridge, I have no idea, but Spider Pig, credit wait. That will be why. Look behind him. The cavalry is on its way. Or at least one less of the cavalry now.
The cavalry decided he was surplus to requirements.
Well, I think it was more of a case of Spider Pig decided to duck so the enemy could, his teammates could fire over the top of him, but unfortunately didn't duck low enough. But, you know, casualties of war, these things happen. Now, let's see. This looks to be the infantry here of possibly skirmishers, I think. These looks like Austrian skirmishers here. So here we are, the 4 TES. So these guys also obviously making their way up as we've got more fire going on between the 3 TS. Let's see what's going on. There we go. French contingent coming in to support their teammates. Loads of stabbing going on. And I think it's fair to say that the... oh, very nice close range shot. Loads... Oh, goodness me. Lots of stabbing going on. These guys doing a really good job of defending themselves. Looks like... you've also got a drummer in there trying to do a little bit of damage. How is that guy still surviving? Oh, and a bit of a stab there going in. And another. God, this guy's on fire until he was killed. So Texas there doing a really good job. Now, that's interesting because in comes the commander. And that was a good play there by the Austrians. They managed to take out quite a significant number of that French line. And that's going to cause a problem for the French. 12 versus 27 in favour of the Austrians. Mal.
Yep, and the Austrians still have both their artillery and the Grenzer light infantry division. And as they're Austrians, their light infantry actually get access to rifles as well. The Austrians are definitely one of the longer range shooting armies. Yeah,
now obviously, let's have a look on the left-hand side because I think there are a few Frenchmen on the far left-hand side. Looks to be a very small line of about 4 to 5 men as cannonballs bounce over the top of their heads. Looks to be, yeah, there's Infernus. From the Colonel John and another member of his squad, Thragorn de Gaulle. So it looks like these guys are... Oh, correction, their colonel just took a cannonball in the bonce, and they are moving in a rather haphazard form, as you've got a single guy at the back here, the lone Frenchman remaining. Very soon, here we go, Fracas. Soldat H, Fracas 63, about to be one of the few Frenchmen remaining, and will probably have to cheese it in the opposite direction, Mal.
Yep, that unit you saw just go in was actually the light infantry I couldn't find earlier. You can signified by the sort of gold banding and stripe work on their hats. So they are allowed to engage in that sort of skirmished out formation.
Yeah, he's now been killed by the captain, which was obviously... Blocher obviously very happy to have got a kill on the board with his sabre, and the light infantry for the French has now been wiped out. 7 Frenchmen are remaining, and we are looking at them as they're actually in a small hole near a hill by moving towards the hamlet on the right-hand side of the Austrians. So the problems is for these guys is the Austrians are going to have the advantage of the musket men and also the riflemen, especially giving them that long range that the Frenchmen will not be able to contend with.
Yeah, that mixed combined arms that the Austrians have left should easily overpower the Frenchmen. And the score sheet gives an interesting picture to show which units each army are making the best use of, with the French having the 7th Hussars packing the top of their score sheet, showing their cavalry prowess. Whereas the Austrians, you've got all 4 of their artillery operators up near the top, and then a scattering of their light and line infantry. Yeah, now the thing is, obviously, it's going to be... I think this is going to be a onwards to bullety death situation, as Pyodor gets a very nice shot long distance with a musket. No, rifle, correction. So there we go. This is what they've decided to do, exactly that. Oh, cannonball just bounces over the top of their head as musket men are now engaging riflemen. This is not going to go well for them. Couple of kills there from Profiler and Backer into the 18 TES. So the question is what's going to happen. And it looks like they're going to be playing 2 more rounds after this round. So this is going to be interesting. Now the question is, will the French take a pot shot at the commander as he is kind of standing there on his horse? So let's see what happens. So here we go. What's going to happen? No, he's going to back off. He's going to stay out of range. And this is the remaining 4. And you can see Texas there. They kind of don't know what to do. They're sort of umming and ahhing. The line format is kind of a little bit fluid. And for Texas, it's less fluid. As a little bit of fire came in there from Stanislav, who appears to be one of the few left.
And there's Corporal Cavoth here, making a move in for the remaining Frenchmen, dodging left, right and centre to try and avoid the muskets. And I think this is going to be the last stand of the French contingent, as it's... Oh, whoopsie-daisy. As it's pretty much all over for the French. Last man standing, Profiler, just about to go down. Valiant death. Here we go, Mal. Yeah, that didn't go so well. And we'll move on to the next round. We'll be right back. And we're back with the 4th round. Now, it looks like going to be 2 more rounds, so a total of 5, and the Austrians convincingly winning thus far. They seem to have applied the better tactics. They're not as aggressive as the French, but they appear to be kind of... I'm not sure what the word is for it, Mal.
They're very reactive, is how I'd portray it. They shift their units around as they're needed. They respond to the threats that the French push at them very well.
Yeah, so that's it's definitely a good reference there. Now, the question is whether or not the artillery of the French is actually going to move. Now, you can see the standard 6-pounder there being moved. Looks like both of the 6-pounders actually being moved up. I don't think they're going to be doing anything with the actual howitzers, so they may stay in position. The question is where the French decide to move the artillery to. Now, you can see these guys getting set up. They're checking the right-hand side, deciding whether or not they're going to go down to the right-hand side by the stone bridge or through the middle. Now, obviously, threading the eye of the needle right down the middle, not a good idea, susceptible to cannon fire from the Austrians. And let's see if we can find out what the Austrians are up to. What do you think they're going to do this time, Mal?
I think they'll continue to play it defensive. It's worked for them so far, and if the French continue to just do exactly the same, then the result isn't all that surprising every round. The French are aggressive, but they're not unified in their aggression. They spread across the map. They don't make use of their artillery, which is sitting far too far back for the kind of play they're going for. And their cavalry, whilst it's good at identifying weak points in the enemy army, just isn't supported when it needs it.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I mean, the thing is, what you're talking about there is combined arms, the advantage of cannon and the artillery, and also, obviously, the cavalry and the line infantry, essentially all support each other to a certain degree. And there seems to be a little bit of team killing going on there. I'm not sure what's going on there. But it looks like, oh, cannonball fire there from some warrior, taking out a few members of the 18TS. So great cannon fire there. That's going to start trimming down the numbers of the Australians defending on... Australians, Jesus. Australians. What the hell? They're from somewhere in the world. On the left-hand side. And let's see if we can find out what's going on with the artillery for the Austrians. I wonder what they're deciding to do this time, Mal.
They look to be setting up in the same position just on the crest of the hill. That French artillery shot was very well placed. They spotted the Austrians trying to hide in the trees and just took out their line. They very nearly got a second hit on them, but they moved out just in time. But the Austrian artillery is just cresting that hill again. Personally, I'd probably pull them back slightly further into the trees to at least give you some concealment, so that they could only trace your position when the smoke of your gun's firing. But it looks like a good position. I mean, it's worked for them so far.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking. It looks like the commander of the skirmishers basically caught a cannonball in the face as it's bouncing beautifully over the top of the hill. Look at those craters being made by the bouncing cannonball. The only thing is that what I can see is it's a bit short of the actual cannons of the Austrians. And they decided to be, I think, pretty smart by putting them behind earthen barricades, hopefully to try and impact or kind of reduce any impact of cannonballs that are fired in that direction, as another cannonball comes flying in and literally just rolls to a halt no more than 20 feet away from the Austrian cavalry, the Austrian artillery there, Mal.
Yeah, and the Austrian counter battery, however, just took out one of the spotters for the French cannons. So unless they've got a replacement, which I think they do somewhere, he has to come over to the gun. They're going to continue to fall short. Those telescopes really are key in maps this size to see where your shots are going and how far up you have to aim.
Yeah, I notice, one thing I have noticed a lot in this game, there seems to be an awful lot of commanders with eye patches. Oh, cannonball fire into Lucas from Nicholas. I literally just brought the camera past that. He caught that square in the chest. A wonderful shot there by the Austrian artillery, as it looks like they are now going to be firing back. There we go, long distance. So I noticed an awful lot of officers in this particular game use those spyglasses, but unfortunately what seems to be a trend is they then hold up the spyglass to their patched eye.
I've always theorised that the patch comes from them looking through the spyglass and standing next to a cannon that they don't realise is going to fire, and they end up jabbing themselves in the eye with it through the shock of the blast. And it's just a habit they have to get out of.
Okay, well, you know, obviously, you know, we believe in health and safety. We don't want to see people unnecessarily damaged by cannon-related injuries, except the enemy, of course. Now, obviously, we're looking at the French cavalry. You've got the hussars over here who seem to be taking a bath in the river, as some guy is stuck on his horse as he's down the side of the cavalry. Now, obviously, these guys are trying to hide their numbers behind the hill, and I think somebody's drowning here with his horse. This is not good, as they're in the river at the moment. Now, obviously, you can see a little bit of a cannon. Flat maps and plus artillery means attackers lose. That's actually an interesting point. Do you think there's any accuracy in that, Mal?
It depends how you attack, of course. If you're just going to sit there and run at them in lines, then of course that is the case. Cannons firing at lines of infantry, it's what they do best. But you need to counter those cannons with their sort of rock, paper, scissors counterpart, which the French have been doing quite well, but then they haven't been protecting that counter for the entire map. Interesting thing, the dragoons are coming down the map edge here. I'm wondering if they've seen the French cavalry hiding on the edge of the riverbank, so we could have a cavalry action here.
Yeah, it looks like they're trying to circle around the right-hand side of the rickety bridge, the wooden bridge on the far right-hand side. Now, they obviously can't see the French cavalry as they appear to have moved anyway. The question is, where the hell have they got to? Because they seem to have disappeared from where they were earlier. And whether or not they're going to make a push in towards the French artillery, do you think? It's difficult to say what happens. It looks like the left-hand side is not defended in any way by the French, and the artillery is going to come under attack by the cavalry on the left-hand side of the Austrians, Mal.
Yep, and the French are doing the same to the Austrians. The French cavalry is actually up in the top right of the map. It's basically a big circle of cavalry trying to sneak up on the opposing artillery, but the Austrians have the better line infantry placement to block that. It's whether they've noticed and who can get the drop on the enemy artillery, because if you can take that out, you've got a distinct advantage straight off.
Yeah, I think that maybe, do you think that's part of the issue that the French have had, is they've not focused down on the French artillery quick enough in order to essentially neutralise the advantage that it gives the Austrians?
Yeah, that's certainly the Austrian artillery has been able to fire with impunity for nearly this whole event, which is indicated by their scores. I mean, 19 for 0 on the top guy there, which is one of their cannon operators. And the Austrian cavalry is now wiping out the French artillery as we speak.
Right, well, that's kind of not exactly unexpected, so let's see if we can move back to find the French cavalry. There we go. So literally all, the Austrian cavalry has wiped out entirely the French artillery contingent. Now, a line has come back to try and push them back. However, I don't think they're going to be successful. They are firing long distance. I think this might be, who are these gentlemen? Yeah, that's the 6TE. And unfortunately, they're going to move into what is left of the artillery. And there's not going to be much they're going to be able to do, as the cavalry has now pushed back out of the way, out of musket and rifle fire. However, it's just what they're doing over there, because I see another line over there taking pot shots at them from around the area of the Stony Bridge. Now, I don't know if you've seen, look on the Stony Bridge, look at the building on the Stony Bridge, or near the Stony Bridge. There seems to be people sitting there.
Just to interrupt, the French cavalry are repaying the gesture and are currently circumnavigated the Austrian line sent to screen them, and they're just destroying the Austrian cannon operators now.
Oh, yes, I'm just watching that at the moment, and they are doing, even though they actually put up defences and spikes and everything like that, they are doing an absolutely phenomenal job of butchering the artillery here for the Austrians. And not only that, they've actually done it and kept a significant number of troops out of the bargain. So I think that's going to make things very interesting indeed for the French. Oh, for the French and the Austrians as well. Now, obviously, looking at the 5PP, this is the skirmishers who are now moving in as a group from the hamlet on the right-hand side to support the line infantry. Now, let's see what's happening, because it looks like the French cavalry has now backed off because they've come under fire from some of the line infantry, and sensible thoughts there from the guys. And I think, however, no, there's another guy with a limber and a cannon. So somebody, who's this? Ah, that's interesting. One of the 7th Hussars guys is actually taking the limber horse and moving it out of the way. So whether or not he can actually... No, he's not going to go anywhere with it. He might try and stab the horse so they can't move the cannon. But it's interesting to see what's going on. Now the line infantry for the Austrians have moved up. There's a sole Frenchman there who seems to be trying to fight off the entire Austrian line, and is just about to get drummed to death. So you can see, there we go, another Hussar going in there, knocking people over. And the question is whether or not the remainder of the Hussars decide to come back and do some damage to the Austrians. I think it's fair to say, oh, look at this, fire going in all over the place. The Hussars doing a good job, and you've also got these dragoons, I think it is, the Austrians, who are also attacking as well, trying to take those skirmishers down. Mal, what's your thoughts on this so far?
Yeah, the skirmishers were in the right position for the cavalry to come and annihilate them. Unfortunately, the line infantry screened them visually, so I don't think the French cavalry saw them quite early enough. As soon as they spotted them, they managed to thread between the line and the enemy dragoons and try to take them on, but they had taken significant casualties by that point. If they'd seen them earlier, this attack may have been a bit more successful, but as it stands, I think they've dealt with significant casualties, but I think they've been wiped out in the process.
Yeah, that definitely appears to be the case. A lot of the 6TE, look at this, a lot of the 6TE absolutely decimated there by the 3TES. Great job with the bayonets and so on and so forth. And also the line infantry that was supporting them being defended by the riflemen. So one of the guys just taking a shot there from Maximus. These guys are now trying to back off, trying to reform their line as quickly as possible. They're going to come under fire from French from 2 directions. Numbers-wise, 37 to 21. So 2 to 1 in favour of the Austrians. I think the French have it all to do as, oh my goodness, look at these guys. They are going bananas, killing so many of the French here. And numbers are looking pretty good. There's only 12 left. They've absolutely butchered the French in this battle.
Oh, he's just butchered his friend there. But well, yeah, one of the good things to do when you're in the lower number of a melee is to try and get right in the middle of them, because if you can run between a guy, he will nearly always try to spin to stab you, and a lot of the time his friend will be coming in for the kill as well. You can often make them hit each other, or at least block each other, and you'll get far more kills by being highly aggressive and sort of erratic, as opposed to just continually backing away.
Yeah, now the thing is, obviously we're looking at 25 versus 10. Now you've still got random people. You've got the guys who are setting up near the artillery in a very defensive position as Cannonball came flying over there. I think it's fair to say, yeah, the French have got the cannons running again. That's going to make things rather interesting. Grenadier von Schwaben, who is a sole artilleryman, and it looks like this is going to be the last round here. Now the trouble is looking at this French artilleryman. I'm not sure if this is French coming from the left-hand side. No, that is French moving from the left-hand side back to the artillery. Now the question is, well, are we going to have a standoff with the Austrians standing by their artillery and the French standing by theirs, Mal?
Well, the French definitely had to fall back to cover it with the Austrian cavalry still at large. The advantage the Austrian cavalry have is they are dragoons. They don't have to get as close as the French cavalry would have had to do to take out this last cannoneer. And as soon as he's down, the Austrians again have the advantage.
Yeah, it looks like these guys are moving in, along with Oberst Blöcher, who is the commander on the field. So notified by the big gold hat and braid and all the rest of it. And if he wants to be a target, then by all means, as it looks like they're using the trees for cover here. Sensible play here by the cavalry, moving through the middle of the trees to try and attack the French, who are holding up by the cannons. Now,
Yep, the French, they are their skirmisher unit, so they can crouch and spread around a bit, which will be useful against those dragoons' firepower. But once they go in with the swords, it's all down to their bayonet ability, holding off cavalry.
Yeah, so this is the final stand of the French in this particular round. The question is, can the French reclaim glory and do what needs to be done? But I think it's fair to say that the French will have to go quite some considerable distance in order to kill the remaining Austrians. Let's see, 21 Austrians, 5 French. So nice stabbing going on there, and more dragoons coming in. Oh, another nice sabre swing into Biggers, and looks like it's fair to say that it could be all over. Oh, there's a cavalryman going after the final artillery guy. He's out there with his Johnson's baby bud to try and do whatever damage he can. He hasn't managed to take down the horse. So, I don't know what to say, really. The French are pretty much down to 2 men. One armed with a Johnson's baby bud and the other armed with a musket. So, it's going to be an interesting battle to see how things go. This could take a while. We could be here for a little while now.
Yeah, it's all about moral victories now. Can they bring down that last cavalryman between them, and then potentially get some kills with the artillery piece on the enemy line as it comes in?
Yeah, this is going to be. Oh, for the sake of look at that! They've got him in. Can they get him? Oh, looks like they've got to be careful they don't try and stab somebody down. He's trying to defend himself. They're going in with the sabres and the swords and the lighter. Is he going to light him to death? Yes, he just lit him. He has absolutely just lit him up. And so there we go. You now have the cannoneer. Here comes the additional line of the Austrians. That's the first time I've actually seen them being lit up there with the lighter for the cannons.
And now we have the most frenzied reload you'll ever meet in an event, as this guy tries to get his cannonball ready for that Austrian line. Which, if it could fire at the moment, he may well decimate the lot of them.
Yeah, they all seem to be coming to him in a direct line at the moment. We're going to watch it. Oh, did you see that? Oh my God, they literally dodged it. It went right through the middle of them. That was so unlucky. I wonder why he went for the cannonball as opposed to the canister shot.
The cannonball does far more lethality, even at that sort of range. The canister's good, but it would not take out 18 guys, even if you did line them all up on the front of the gun.
And there we have it. Good games to all the teams. The Austrians with a significant win there over the French. So it seems that history has been rewritten and not in favour of Napoleon. Your thoughts on this battle then, Mal?
I thought it was well played by both teams. The Austrians just seemed to have the overall strategy of teamwork and coordination, combined with their better artillery placement just naturally by the map, I think is what won it for them, really.
Yeah, it's fair to say that. It was a good game played by both teams. Obviously, I think it's fair to say it would have been nice to have seen the French get a score on the board, but alas, it was not to be. And this has been the Battle of Austerlitz. And thank you for joining myself and Mal in our first inaugural dual broadcast. And we will see you again next time. Say goodbye, Mal.
See you next time.